Hello there! So today I thought I would do a career related video because I recently had a telephone interview for a product and marketing graduate scheme, and obviously I prepared quite a lot for this, and I thought that maybe my advice on how I prepare for these kind of things might be useful for some of you. Obviously, I'm not a careers expert, I'm still a university student. I currently don't have a job offer, but I have had quite a few jobs. So I'm quite used to applying for things. I had an internship over the summer, so I'm used to kind of having to go through the process of it. I will just say I did get through the telephone interview and was invited to go to an assessment day. So I guess this preparation worked for me. So here is what I did. So I was told beforehand that my interview would be in two parts. The first part would be kind of motivational based questions. So things like, why do you want to work for us? What are your career aspirations? Kind of just things about me in relation to the job. And then the second half would be competency based questions, which I think are used quite a lot. And these are basically like, describe a time when, and you have to try and think about when you did that kind of behaviour. So I was quite lucky in a way that I was told what they were going to be like, but those seem to be like the two different sort of broad categories of questions. Now, I was also given some recommendations of how to structure my answers for the competency-based questions, and I think this is a really great technique, and it's called the STAR method. Each letter stands for a different thing. So S is situation, T is task, A is action, and R is result. So basically, say if the question was, give an example of when you went out of your way to help someone. So you then have to think back to all of your life experiences, and remember, often, particularly with graduate jobs, they don't expect you to have had all of these experiences in a work-based environment. They often say that it's okay to use examples from your personal life. Just think of a situation where you've gone out of your way to help someone. So S to describe it. So for me, I would say when I was in Milan for this Discover Your Talent week, I saw a girl eating dinner by herself, and I was sat with a group of friends, and I saw her looking a bit lonely. So that was the situation. Then task is kind of, how did it affect you? Like, how were you involved with it? What was your sort of responsibility? So in this situation, it's slightly less well defined, because obviously I didn't have to help her. But for that, you would say, well, I felt very lucky to have a group of friends, and I wanted to meet other people, and I wanted to make sure that she was happy. And then A is action. So what did you do in that situation? So I went over there, introduced myself, and said, oh, do you want to come and eat with us? And what was the result? Well, she came over, she seemed quite pleased that someone had spoken to her, and you can say like the short-term result and the long-term result. So I've just said the short-term result, she came and sat over with us, sort of got to know her. Long-term result, I think she enjoyed the rest of her week a bit more because she had a group of friends and we kept in touch afterwards. So that is the STAR method, and I think it helps you to structure your answer quite well, because often, if you don't use a method like that, sometimes you forget to say exactly sort of what point in your life it was, and probably because but you kind of forget that the other person doesn't know what you're referring to. And also, a tip from me, I would think about the kinds of skills that the employer is looking for, or that you think they'll be looking for. Now, these are quite easy, I would say, to predict. So probably in most jobs, they want evidence of team working skills, organisational skills, time management, team working skills, influencing others, understanding others, listening to others, taking your own initiative. So when you go on to talk about the result, it's good to kind of take it one step further. So say with my example, you could say improved my networking skills and sort of my interpersonal skills. Take it one step further and explain what you learned from that situation that could be useful in the job you're applying to. I think that kind of will make you stand out a bit more. So if you've got the time, I would come up with some competency-based questions. If you Google competency-based questions, you'll probably find quite a few websites with them, and if possible, try and come up with an example. And what I've done here is just put the situation, the task, action and result. If you're lucky, they'll ask you one of the questions that you've thought of. If not, I think it still helps you anyway, because it means that you've got all of your experiences fresh in your mind. And sometimes with some of these examples, you can still use them, but for a different question, you just sort of have to tailor it a little bit. Another tip with competency-based questions is try and be quite specific. The trouble is, sometimes people make up answers for these questions. I really wouldn't do that, because, at the end of the day, it's probably not going to help you. And when you're giving your answer, you're going to be more convincing and more persuasive if you're talking with conviction, because you're describing something that actually happened. I think they can tell when people are making it up. And to kind of help show that you have actually experienced this, it helps to be specific. So obviously with the situation, try and make it as specific as you can. And even if you think it's not that relevant, rather than saying like, oh, I did this particular piece of work, like say what the piece of work was. Obviously don't spend a long time doing this, but just say, oh, I had to research X. And it also might sort of help to put you back in that situation and for you to remember it better. There are lots of different questions that it could be. Try and have a think about them, Google like common interview questions. But in particular, I would think about why you want to work for the company and why you think you're suitable for the job. So it's probably a good idea to find a job specification for the role you're applying to and just go through and highlight the main things that they're looking for and the main things that you would do during the job. So I did this for mine, and I thought about how am I suitable for this, and is there any experience that I've had that's relevant for what I would be doing in that job. When you're thinking about why you want to work for the company, do not just say like, oh, because it's really well paid. I mean, maybe with like if they have benefits, then you could talk about those. In trying to come up with an answer for this, you need to get excited about the company, because that will come across in your answer. Maybe like visualize yourself in that job and think, why would I like to be doing that? Like, why does it appeal to me? You could just say like, you'd find it interesting learning about new things, whatever it is, and then you can talk about actual aspects about the company rather than just the job. So say the company I was applying for has been recognised as like a top 25 employer by like the Sunday Times. So I mentioned that because I think that's okay. You could also say like, oh, it seems quite challenging or rewarding. You could also mention the general kind of work ethic of the company. And this moves me on to my next point, and that is to research the company's core values. Usually all companies will have these. With some companies they place more emphasis on them than others. Make sure you have a rough idea of them, and you could mention that in your why you want to work for the company answer, because hopefully they will fit in with your kind of personal beliefs and values. I would also make sure you know your short-term and long-term career goals. I've been asked that a couple of times before, and even if you're not quite sure, maybe look at that particular role and try and find out what people tend to go on to do. Try and look at the career progression path and see whether a couple of sort of positions up is a job that appeals to you in the long term. And I would also say you should research the company in the news. So see what articles have come out recently about them, any like key issues that the company faces, and just make a note of these in like a Word document. Don't spend too long on this because it is just a telephone interview. I produced a one-page thing about it. I put the most important stories, or what I felt were the most important stories, at the top. I would also just make sure you're clear in your head about what it is that the company does. Make sure you know like what kind of products or services they have, say what countries they operate in, and what kind of like industry they're in, and maybe just find out a couple of their competitors. And you know, if you have time, maybe like look a little bit into their history. Why were they established? When were they established? Also, try and find out like who their customers are, who they're sort of targeting. You can usually find, like, kind of get a sense of this quite easily, probably just on their website. So I produced just a one-page information sheet about the company, and I kind of looked up why a client would choose the company over competitors. Why is it successful? How is it different? For whatever scheme you're applying for, whatever job it is, like have a look at things that that department have done in the past. So for me, it's a product and marketing scheme. So I went back and just had a quick look at some of their adverts. I looked at their slogans. This just gives you an indication of the message that they're trying to convey, and it's going to give you a good idea of what they're about, really. Okay, another thing I would say is Google the company and then telephone interview. So say if it was like Santander, Google Santander telephone interview, and usually quite a lot will come up. I quite like Glassdoor, a website where people can post reviews of how their interview went. That can sometimes be quite useful. And also make sure you check out the website of the company in general. Just have a quick browse. Okay, so on the day, make sure you're sat somewhere quiet. Sit at your desk so that you feel, you know, professional. Make sure that you've got a drink handy because, you know, talking is thirsty work. Yeah. You might even want to wear some nice clothes. Anything to get you in the right frame of mind. So, make sure you've got a pen handy and some paper, just in case they tell you anything useful. Okay, so remember, they cannot see you, so you can have all of your notes out. I would place them strategically if I were you. I would put the most important ones right in front of you. So I would suggest the competency-based questions and the motivational-based questions. But you know, you should also have a copy of your CV out. Another tip is to just quickly read over your application, just to remind yourself of what you actually said. This might sound stupid, but remember to smile. Because this is me talking normally without smiling. But if you have a smile on your face, then it automatically just makes you sound a bit more pleasant. It's all about being positive, and also obviously don't mumble as well. And make sure you have some questions to ask them at the end. So you can ask like about the training that they provide, or you know, even something simple like what's the next stage of the recruitment process. And don't be put off by whoever is interviewing you. So when I had my interview, I could tell that the lady was reading off a script on her computer. It wasn't like a normal conversation. She didn't say like yes or oh okay. You know, like she didn't even make any kind of responses to what I was saying, and don't let that put you off. Okay, so I hope this video will help some of you. Let me know in the comments box below if it does, or if you've got any further tips, or if you've got an interview coming up. And please like and subscribe, and stay tuned because I've got some more job related videos coming up. I will do one for my assessment day. Finally, if you do have a telephone interview coming up, I wish you the best of luck, and think positive thoughts, prepare, and you can do it. That's all from me. Bye.